Hello, Colin. Good day to you. Thank you for being here. My name is Alfonso on behalf of the Mexican YouTube channel slash blog about the new age of extreme music. We mostly like to comment what is happening around the world on the extreme music landscape, heavy music, and such. And well, you have a new work, a new recently released on your own. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you for being here. How is your day going?
How did excuse me what?
How is your day going?
My day. Oh yeah, my day. It's okay. Yeah. It was a busy day. I was at the rehearsal. So I worked the whole afternoon on new stuff with a friend of mine. I spoke to some friends in the before noon, had a coffee in the morning. Then I went play basketball with my sons.
Okay.
It was a good day. It was a good day.
Pretty eventful day, I will say.
Yeah. It was full. It was full. But that's good.
Okay, so I over the course of this conversation, I will try to cover most of your body of work with a few questions, but also about you in particular. So, with that in mind, do you believe in reincarnation?
Um, Reincarnation, not really. I believe in different things. It depends on how I feel, um I can dream about coming back in other forms or other persons, but um I think I believe more in a hereafter. You know what I mean? i
Mm,
i I have a sincere hope in me that I will meet the people that have left me already again in an afterlife, something like that. I hope that there'll be a big party and there'll be happiness and joy everlasting with all the people I love. Harmony. That's what I dream of. I would love to see it on Earth right now, but it's not really happening. So I hope it's going to be good out there
it,
then.
it it makes you hopeful and make you look forward to something after that.
Yeah, I think hope is a good thing because it drives you to carry on. If there is no hope, everything is hopeless, is without sense. Is why are we doing anything if there's no hope or uh, a faint light that things might turn for the better, with mankind. But we have to keep believing and trying hard.
And do you consider that this is something that you infuse in your music? This light at the end, after all, a sense of
Yeah,
hope.
that's what I always try to make you feel: the presence of change, the presence of hope, the presence of renewal. I don't know. I think that is something that comes back in most of my projects. Some projects we aimed for the darkness and try to keep it in the darkness. Then other, most of them we try to bend towards the light. I've said it before, but it is how it is.
Just want to mention that I have some problems with your connection. Sometimes I lose you, a few breaks
Okay,
here
yeah,
and there. I don't know, you
yeah.
can hear me well or good enough?
I can hear you well. Yeah, it's probably because I'm in a garage or something that my connection isn't ideal.
We can make it work. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay, so after a few listenings to your new material, Kalvarie, and perhaps 4 or 5 times, I in my head what I picture is, or how I appreciate this piece is something spiritual, like some kind of meditative repetition and mantra like singing. You're
Hmm.
singing. So any questions I will have for you at that point, they all will have somehow been around spirituality and the nature of this work. But then I
Hmm.
read the file that the label provided me, and some of my thoughts on it were confirmed by you, but your comments on it. But I learned that you mentioned there that this work draws some inspiration in the work of Jean-Marie Massou, the French guy, right?
Yes. It was
So,
yeah.
Please go ahead.
Well, it was a French man that was in his 50s, I think, and he died recently, a few years ago. I think 2 years ago now or something. But he had a piece of land in a region called Lot in France, and he excavated rocks in his land that he had, and he built tunnels, and he actually had what people would say mental problems, and he presumably was living in a psychosis. You know, he believed that a certain species was coming and the end of the world was coming, and his solution at hand was he had to build the tunnels, and he painted symbols on the rocks, and while doing so he sang songs. French songs about I don't know, folk songs, but he also was like speaking to himself all the time about the end times and stuff like that, and that inspired me. And while doing so, the sounds were of the stones were making noise because he was moving the stones around, and he recorded those things on tapes. But he recorded them merely for himself. He wasn't a musician. He didn't intend to make albums. He didn't intend to play shows. But it was a part of his world. It was how he functioned. It was how he communicated with the environment. And that was extremely inspiring for me, to see a contemporary human that was using music as a medium to live, to survive, to tell his story to himself in a way. And I thought that was beautiful. And it inspired me to start working with all that world.
So in that sense, would it be safe to assume that this piece of work revolves around spirituality and the madness of humankind, or apparent madness of human behavior, and healing in isolation?
Healing in isolation is beautifully said. The human disease, it's it depends on what you call a disease. It depends on what you call normal. What is normal, what is not normal. But definitely means for healing, means for to have it make sense for himself, life, and he had a mission, he had a passion, he had a mission. Something told him to do it every day of his life, excavate, make tunnels with his bare hands, move big rocks around, just like we are inspired or told to make music, or to write, or to whatever your passion is. I feel obliged to make music and tell stories of sound, so, and he had another mission, and I think it's what keeps a human going, I think.
I haven't watched the documentary yet, but the way you explain it, Jean-Marie acts and devoted his life, his time, and think about the end of times. So his behavior was shaped by the notion of impending doom, perhaps. And all of us, or most of us, move through life knowing that our time will end at some point. How different would you live your life knowing that the end of times might come ahead of your own end? And would you sit peacefully contemplating the end, as Jean did, try to build a shelter to survive?
I don't know. It depends on how close the end is, I think the normal worry is your children, right? Like what's up with them? What's it gonna be like, or whatever. I don't really think about that stuff. In the end is always near. As a human, I mean, I can die tomorrow. I can have an accident. It can be done. So, in a way, you have to try the make peace with the people around you, or with the unsettled scores, or whatever. You have to try to not have any regrets, or have to regret your own behavior towards others. It's a hard question. I wouldn't know what if the end time would come. I would surround myself with my loved ones for sure, and try to make a feast of it. But I don't know if
Mm.
I would be able. I don't know if I would be able to. I haven't had the situation yet. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that we like think about or we would consider any day. Um, Many spiritual traditions attempt to address the presence of suffering and its role in human growth and understanding. So, for you,
Mm.
would you say that is suffering a necessary path to spiritual enlightenment or healing, or
Yeah,
a,
definitely.
or a result of human folly, or what for you is the purpose or spiritual purpose of suffering?
Yeah, I think suffering creates perspective. I mean, when you suffer, you realize the preciousness of not suffering. Not having troubles that bear weight on your shoulders. So I think suffering is means for a human to be able to focus on the essence, make
Mm.
your the demands and expectations of life smaller, aim on people around you, health, the people around that you love, that you appreciate to the fullest. Um, those things, shelter. Uh, it's when you see all the suffering and the wars that are going on right now. I mean, then you realize how blessed you are sitting in your room or in your garage or whatever, in peace. But I believe that humans need to be persuaded of that from time to time. You forget that, and then we start bitching about unnecessary things and futile things, and create unhappiness out of random things that aren't worth bitching about. Anyway, I think suffering is a good is an equalizer in a way. It flatlines you back to your essence in a way and shows you what is important and what is not.
And when it
That's what comes
comes
to
when
mind
it,
now.
when it comes to your work with Amenra, would you consider
Hmm.
yourself a suffering artist or an artist that paints with suffering?
It has been both. The artist has suffered before and probably will suffer again at certain points in his life. But it's when the suffering is over, when the wound is closed. I mean, you can still reach back to that feeling of suffering and that feeling of being lost to continue creating. It's a very thankful source of inspiration. Adversity and darkness. It has been for ages, since the dawn of mankind. It has been the main drive for a lot of people to create arts. So it has been both.
And
Yeah.
has there any be a time in which you create something out of light and happiness and positive things?
Happiness, not really. I mean, we have time. I mean, I create together with my friends, my brothers. We love each other. It's a very warm environment, so we have good times and we have fun doing it. But I mean, we choose to dwell in the darkness and work with that. So we have created dark works in an
Mm.
atmosphere of balance. You know.
Mm.
But we can reach back to moments of trauma or suffering to work with that, because we know how it feels like and where it comes from. But we never made happy music. I know we made songs for our children at some point, acoustic songs, but it was songs that were written from the point of view of the afterlife when we are gone, so we can speak to them from the afterlife, and comfort them when we are already past. Um, that's not really happy music or from a positive
Yeah.
place. But it leans towards that.
At some point, when you starting to consider working on your own music, your solo music, I read that a thing in your head was, what would your personal story be, and what would it sound like? As of now,
Yeah.
we have listened to your music. We get the answer, but how do you understand the music that you make on your own compared with the other 20 years of working with Amenra? And how do you, yeah, how would you describe it?
I mean, everything's connected, eh? I mean, everything inspires each other, and everything kind of tells the same story from a different angle. You know, every project is a personal view on. But what we try to guard is that we tell a sincere story. You know,
Mm.
I always wait until I have something worth telling, that makes sense to me, that has a right to exist, I call it. But how do I compare it? I don't know. I don't really know. To me, it feels like everything I do is the same. Is the same story with a different feeling or base, you know. But so yeah, I don't know.
So you mentioned that you wait until you feel that you have something good to say. So what was the one thing that you knew about this song or this EP before organically unfolding?
I mean, it was the standing still with for me. It obliged me to stand still with the fact that I'm entering an age where things will start falling away. You know, sickness and cancers will start to introduce themselves, and heart disease and whatever, because we're getting older. You know, we're not 20 years old anymore. So I'm bracing myself for the loss that is coming. You know, my mother is growing older. I am an only child, so I know that I'll have to sort those things out, and that frightens me. That in a way. So, and in a way, I want to prepare myself so it's not that much of a shock. So I cycle around that. I I speak about seeing tears in the eyes of my friends around me, my brothers. You know, I see, and I dwell in that world for a while just to probably prepare myself for what will come, and that's what Jean-Marie Massou and his work kind of inspired me to do, to like think about the end times and what are the end times to me. For me, it feels like the worst time when I lose people or when I so yeah.
Because you can't imagine life afterwards. And you mentioned that you are an only child, and I felt that deeply because I am also an only child. My mother lives far where I live now, and I
Yeah.
sometimes that question pops in my head, you know, but I try to avoid it, but it sometimes is
Yeah.
there, and well, that helps me fully appreciate this piece a lot more.
Yeah.
When you have that kind of inspiration that comes from a very human and vulnerable side, how much of it do you try to, perhaps in an abstract way, piece there, fit in there, but also, as you mentioned, you are trying to grieve ahead of grieving, right?
Yeah.
And healing ahead of the necessity of it. How much of it is preconceived with the notion of healing, and how much of it comes, you know, I just want to let go of that feeling? I don't know if that's.
Yeah. And in a way, I don't see it as letting go of that feeling. I see it as embracing that feeling and going back to that feeling and obliging myself to think about, like you said, humans have the tendency to push those things away, like, let's not think about
Yeah,
that. Let's not think
yeah.
about the fact that my parents will die. Let's not think about the fact that my children can get ill or whatever. So I oblige myself to think about it, and because I do so, I realize like, I have to visit my mom more. I have to,
Mm.
spend more time with the people that I really love. But you know, every human is on his train, his life train. You know, it's on track, it's going, and you don't necessarily stop a lot to look around you. So that for me, that's like it forces me to stand still with that thing all the time. I'm like constantly, every show that I will play in the future and play this song, I stand still with the fact that, like, you know, I sing about my mother dying, and I sing about friends being teary-eyed and stuff like that. You know, I am not a I'm not a saint, and I am definitely not a good friend enough. You know, not good friend enough to sit down with my needy friends. I mean, friends who struggle for the moment. You know, I try to, and I am there sometimes, but not enough. Anyway, so I constantly remind myself of that, like, you know, what I assume that is important in life.
So this song is an embodiment of that.
I think so. It's all, even for me, it's abstract. You know, it comes instinctively, and the words and they flow, and its meaning becomes clearer and clearer to myself too sometimes, like, or it shifts in directions depending on how I feel or how my life looks like at a certain time, you know.
But was the initial part of this song with you resembling the rocks and the field recording, was that deliberated, or that also came in the moment?
It was a plan. I mean, I had my rocks. I made the sounds with the mics in the rehearsal room, and then I went to Much Love Studio, Tim, the bass player of Amenra studio. So I went there, and I explained him what I wanted to do. You know, have my rock rhythm evolve from randomness to a beat between brackets. You know, and it's just the inspiration of my world. You know, I listen to hip hop a lot too, and in a way that inspires me to have the bass drum snare repetition. But it's not hip hop. But I mean, it inspires me musically to tell my personal stories. You know, and then he helped me create the beats, and then when we did the music part, it went to Seth Manchester in the States, who worked some more on the textures, and it is what it is now.
What kind of hip hop do you enjoy? Like abstract hip hop or straightforward, the beat to it?
Straightforward, I think more more 90s inspired things. Now I listen to, it's called Conway the Machine a lot, and stuff like that. I like the cadence. I like how they use words. I like how they wait for their bass line to be on the right moment in the song. And anyway, it's probably because I'm a singer that I'm interested in how they use language and how they rhyme and how they work with language and lyrics. Anyway, I take everything I can to inspire me and to learn from.
I remembered one of your collaborations. The song was called Invisible, but I don't remember quite well the name of the artist. And there I discovered your kind of hip hop cadence with voice. I mean,
it's true. That, I think that was the first time that the worlds kind of converge a little bit. It's trip hoppy more, the song, but true.
Interesting. And was that? Will you do it again?
If the songs ask for that, I would. You know, if I feel there's space to do it. It's not like I'm planning on having a hip hop album or anything like that at all. You know, but it's just, I like to be inspired by things that aren't my style. You know what I mean? I mean, other worlds. I look for things in other worlds to mix things up, and I believe it'll make things more interesting than sticking to trying to get inspiration out of one musical style or genre. You know, so
and
it's better to look broad, look wide, and see.
So you do identify hip hop, the hip hop world, that somehow was present when it comes to the modulation of this rock reassembling.
I believe so. I assume so. Yeah, because it kind of reminds me of it, you know, in a way.
Now that we mentioned rocks, here where I lived, there is a hill called El Cerro de la Campana, or the Bell Hill, and it has this name because it resembles the shape of a bell, but also because it's mostly made of phonolith rocks, you know, that when struck create a sound similar to metallic bell, you know. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
encountered this kind of sounds.
I saw videos on that online. Yeah, I think Sigur Rós also did a song. You know the band Sigur Rós? It's like a
Oh,
post-rock song.
yeah.
I think they also have something with it's like a rock xylophone thing that they use different types of sizes of rocks to have different notes, and anyways, it's super inspiring, interesting. I love sounds of nature. I mean, with the rocks and the xylophone and different notes, you already have music and melody.
Yeah.
But I kind of like even to stick more to the archaic, rudimentary side that is just the sound of the rocks, the harshness,
Yeah.
you know, just banging them together. For me, I compare it with a fire. It draws your attention. It does something it awakens something instinctive in you as a human, as an animal almost. Like when you see a fire, you like gaze into it, you're sucked into a fire, you just stare in the damn thing, and you lose your yeah. And then with rocks, the sound of rocks also does something. It's like it awakens you or something.
Now that you mention it, I don't know if you have experience or have done this as a child, but I remember being in the mountains of here or near the places I lived and throwing rocks, you know, below the hills, and the sound, the bouncing of that was kind of mesmerizing.
Yeah, or like an echo or like a delay because of
Yeah.
this is also like I say, when you like sing or scream in a cave, that's interesting. It's like a child discovering things again. It awakens that feeling, I think. Anyway, it's like I said, that's interesting matter to work with and to.
I saw your performance for the song in the video release of the song, and well, you choose to also present yourself making this reassemble of rocks with the track the track of your song like in the background, and I mean that was I'm guessing that it holds some symbolism, right, when you decide to present that.
Yeah, it does, but I don't necessarily aim on it.
Okay.
I mean, for me, what is the rock, the stain? It has. My father was a Freemason, and you have a song that is like a metaphor, and he has a big. He chose a bigger rock for his tombstone, a rough rock, unchiseled. That's his tombstone, and he told me like whenever you feel bad, you come and with a hammer and a chisel, and you hit a piece of the stone from my tombstone, you know. And that those things feed me, you know. I mean, that's my world, that's my story. So, but it's not like I look for to really. Now I'm speaking about it because you asked for it, but I'm not necessarily using that as an explanation of the whole thing. It's my story. I mean, nobody else.
But that made an impact on yourself, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful metaphor. It's a beautiful idea, you know. Like when life hits hard, you come and break
like
pieces of my tombstone. It's beautiful,
it's
you know.
it's like I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's also like a reminder that you are alive. And
also, yeah, it's beautifully said. Yeah, true. I mean, it just makes you think. It makes you go deeper. Like you said, I hadn't thought about that point of view. Like it proves that you are still there and still alive and able to do it.
Yeah.
But like, because of that idea, we're talking and we're making sense and feeding each other, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Well, feeding each other, this piece honestly gives me a lot of food for thought. And even with the naming of the pieces, it's a one song. I don't know why you expected to hear more pieces on this EP, but it's called Kalvarie, and the song is called Eternity. And I don't know if you try to guide us to better understanding of this work, because I mean you could have named it as the song or vice versa, but you decide to use two different names. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I just do what I feel, but I mean, I just had a lot to say. Maybe I had more to say with words than I had with music. Kalvarie is more a reference towards the image that is on the cover. The cover, the Calvary mountain is Golgotha, is the mountain where Jesus supposedly was crucified on. And that's also what it looks like on the cover. And the Kalvarie mountain, the Kalvarie berg, it's called in Flemish, in my language. That's the hill. My little village where I live, where I grew up in. My school was on the top of the Kalvarie berg, the Kalvarie mountain. So each day I had to walk the hill to the top of I did the Calvary every day until I was 12 years old with my backpack on and my books, But I mean, and Eternity that was like a part of a conversation between me and the Amenra sound engineer Hein. When we were in Colombia, actually, we were looking around, and Eternity is a sort of I don't know, asbestos, as that's actually a matter that causes cancer, that is in rough in ceilings and in walls and shit, Anyway, so yeah,
I've heard of this.
Anyway, so for me, it all connected and it all had to be in there in some way. So I stick two names on there because it makes sense in a way in my head, So yeah, that's why they have like two names. Doesn't make sense at all.
Well, I did a different read on the name of the song, Eternity.
Well, it's a direct reference from the lyrics. I sing about l'éternité in French, eternity in English, and éternité is just a part of that. But it's also what causes cancer, and my dad died of cancer, and For me, they're all like pieces of a puzzle that connect, and I'm like, okay, just makes sense. Let's do this.
You have done plenty of work on yourself with your band. But this piece, talking about this piece, will it make it somehow more deeply personal to you than the rest?
No, no. I try to make it all personal in a way. Personal. I mean, I try to make it abstract so everybody can find themselves enough in the lyrics and things like that. But it's not because I'm alone that it's more personal than it is with Amenra, I think it's just less opinions about it, It's just it doesn't necessarily make it easier, because sometimes when we create with 5 people, sometimes 3 of us really believe in it and persuade the others like that it really needs to be that way, and then everybody goes like, okay, we can trust the majority of the group, like, okay, if you guys believe that it makes sense, then we'll do it. But I only have one voice, then it's mine. But I mean, I like I said, Tim, our bass player, Amenra bass player, recorded the song, so I was talking to him all the time when we were recording, and he somehow has its part in there too, just because of the conversations we had while we were recording. So like I said, it's all connected always. Yeah.
So this isn't necessarily 100% on your own.
Excuse me?
This isn't 100% work of your own. It's influenced by different
I
people.
mean, I mean, it's never one thing,
Well,
you know.
yeah.
If you record, I mean, you have a conversation with the technician that pushes on play or records, and he says his opinion. It changes your opinion sometimes, and he becomes a part of the record. I've never made anything on my own, you know. It's always in connection with everyone around me, almost.
Okay, so the interesting part of this is that you keep a mind open to embrace different opinions and make it part of your
Definitely.
work. Yeah.
I have a vision, a certain vision that I want to follow, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm always right, you know, and that should always leave open the opportunity to grow because of someone else's opinion or remark or whatever.
Over time, with all of your projects, all of your collaborations, could you describe how your relationship with music has developed over time? For example, do you write only with the purpose of releasing music, or is something that you also enjoy in solitude?
Do I enjoy it in solitude? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my relationship is to the music in a way. I think in the years that I've been doing it, I realize more and more that I'm not really fit to do it in that sense that I'm not made to be on a stage because it's too much stress for me. So the performative side isn't really what I love most. I mean, it's the creative. It's the, like I said, it's the assembling the pieces of the puzzle. Like in Amenra, for example, we have a very unorthodox way of writing, and that is most bands have one songwriter that pretty much makes the whole song, makes the demo at home, decides on drums, bass, everything, and then comes to the rehearsal with a finished song, and the rest somewhat fills in the blanks. But in our case, everybody has like his opinion about things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be right musically. It has to feel right above anything. It has to move you or move a certain amount of us in the group, which makes it a very complex and hard process. But in the end, it's probably even more rewarding because it was so hard to come to a compromise where everybody can feel good about it, or at least the most part of us. But I don't know what my relationship is to music.
So
I question.
Amenra music has evolved because that person has evolved musically, not necessarily the band.
Excuse me, I don't really understand the.
So the Amenra's music has evolved because of that one person has evolved as an artist or musician instead of the full band in the process.
I mean, no, Amenra doesn't really have a sole songwriter or anything. I mean, it's everybody.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the difference between us and most bands. That most bands have like a main songwriter.
Yeah.
But here it shifts around and everybody has its opinion. The drummer has opinions of my vocals. I have opinions about the bass. The bass player has opinions about the guitar, and everybody is allowed to have his opinion, and every idea is being questioned and tried, and so that's what I mean. It's a very it's a very hard process, but it's a extremely rewarding process. And in the end, I think it's seeing all those pieces of the puzzle come together that I probably enjoy. It's a shitty ride, but when we get there, it's all too rewarding, I guess, that we succeeded in getting there, you know.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the performatic aspect of Amenra is the part that you don't see yourself fit for it, because I think, well, in my opinion, and I think for most people who enjoy your music, also goes to an Amenra show because of the performance of it. You know, I don't know if this has something to do with you being insecure about it, that you kind of consciously want to detach your own self from it and become another persona in the live stage. But the way I have come to appreciate your music is because there's a sense of ritual that is attached to Amenra, and
Yeah.
I think like a church-like audience, I want to go to the ritual to see how the band performs their songs, and it has a strong sense of performance to it. I don't know how do you respond to that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are in ways a live band. I mean, it is the live experience is way more intense and way more effective than a studio album or music by itself. I mean, it's something you have to see, something you have to feel live. I understand that the magic lies in the live performance of our music, the sheer force of what's happening, and it's the physical sacrifice almost that you see on stage, because everybody's really physically trying as hard as they possibly can. And I think if you witness that, it's like you see the necessity or the intensity of it is higher than your average band. So it assumes a certain necessity or purpose. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're having a good time on stage, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's what I meant with my relationship with music. I more and more I believe, I feel like I have to do it, but I more and more I realize that I don't like doing it. Yeah, but it's just what we feel like we have to do.
Love and hate relationship with music.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I mean, you have to love it, but I can't imagine being in your shoes, feeling like that, and devoting your time and your life mostly to do this kind of art. I want to mention something, and this is just a comment that I want to follow with a question. I remember an interview that Stephen Till of Neurosis did many years ago with a Swedish TV show, in which he talked about he describes the music of Neurosis and perhaps metal in general as to a kick in the face, and how over time the band started to question that kick in the face that may have lost impact or seriousness, and how that notion came to the result of the album The Eye of Every Storm. So it was for them the 8th album. I don't know if Amenra at some point in particular had a similar notion that resulted in questioning how do you approach your music and how do you nurture it, and if perhaps that album could be Mass 5.
I don't know. I don't look at it. I just see the albums that we bring out as a reflection of our state of being at that time.
Okay.
And I mean, if if we have something, it depends on how we feel. I mean, we don't necessarily feel that we lost the possibility to have the boot in the face of the listener or the viewer. I think we can still do that if we would want to, technically. But the question is if we still want to, if that's still our story to tell, you know, at a certain point. We will release what comes out of us. I mean, when you're 20 years old or 30 years old, you're still pissed off at things and you still have a lot of frustration inside of you. But if you're 45 years old and you're a parent and you have children and your life looks different, you have a different stance in life, so you have a different story to tell as a human being. So, and I probably think music reflects that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we lost the ability to do it. I mean, in a way, we made the dawn that was a lot calmer than the ones before, but that triggered us to write the Absent and Body, like me and Matthew, that triggered us to write the Absent and Body album, just to prove that we can still do it. It's not only that way, but it was a way for us to show the world that we are. It is an obvious choice of what story we want to tell. You know, we can do both, but a certain band asks for a certain story at a certain time. You know, like Amenra is about honesty and is about telling the story, our story, in a most genuine way possible. So and Absent and Body was more, it wasn't a concept album, what it was pretty much an idea that we wanted to manifest. You know, we wanted to focus on the darkness. Anyway, I don't know, and Mass 5, I don't know. I don't have a certain idea about Mass 5 that is different than of Mass 4 or Mass 6 or whatever, I have no idea.
So in any point, any of your records has been like a fully conscious effort. You can only go look back and realize what perhaps that certain specific moments in the band life happened, right? But when you are in the process, you can acknowledge that.
Yeah, when in the process, we don't really know what we're doing. In that sense, I mean, we have no idea what the outcome will be, how people will take it in, or we never have a blueprint of, oh, next album needs to be a calmer one, or next album needs to be a heavier one, or we just start writing and the shit that comes out will be on the record, despite of us wanting a heavy song. If there's a calm song that comes out, it'll be a calm song. It's not that like we're gonna keep on going until we get what the theory says we should have. That's why we never really know what it will be, and then accordingly, as it takes form, we can decide what it is, or what the album will be called, or whatever.
Okay, so you mentioned that Amenra is about honesty and reflection of the band individually. You don't know what the next Amenra album will sound like or will sound like, but as you mentioned, when it is about honesty, how much shape or is influenced by the stage of your life, and you know what comes with growing, the decaying of the body, and you know being aware that the live performance of your music is physically demanding. Would you risk to make a intense album in the future, heavier, denser, if you
Yeah. If you give us a reason to make one, I mean, of course we will. I mean, if we have a vast amount of shite to talk about that pisses us off, probably the songs will be heavier and denser, you know. If we are in a pseudo zen like state of mind and everything is pretty much going well in our lives, you probably will have a calmer album. I think that's what I feel now, or what was happening, you know.
And in the context of Kalvarie and the context of you in recent years, I know that you work as an actor in a movie, and that the band also make a recent release called Skunk for the soundtrack of the movie. I noticed a pattern there with that album and also with Kalvarie, which, for example, Kalvarie is very unique in your catalog, but also Skunk as a soundtrack is very unique. It's almost detached from the form, and it's very loosely about the aura, the atmospherics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if working in that movie as an actor and working on that soundtrack was also is also reflected in Kalvarie.
Not really. Like the soundtrack of Skunk is pretty much to be seen separately from Kalvarie, because Kalvarie was recorded, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and Skunk was recorded not so long ago, and Skunk was pretty much made by Tim, our bass player, and Leonard, our guitar player. And I sang, and when it was pretty much done, I did some vocals on there, so I had no musical
input,
no, except my vocals, pretty much. Yeah, and there's not a lot of vocal on there, so
yeah. I haven't seen the movie, but for what I could watch in the video, Smell Good, if I remember correctly, yeah, Smell God.
Yeah.
It was a very intense performance on your part, and I could, guess some topics about it, went into the imagery, but so you have this developed sense of performatic art in yourself, but acting, in my opinion, is about pretending. So in what way your life persona is instinctive? You don't question it. You don't second guess it. You just act. But when it comes to acting, you have to pretend all the time. Was that hard for you?
No. Yeah. In a way, I approach it as I'm used. The thing is, like on stage, my stage persona, if you like to call it, has formed itself over the years. I mean, I started playing shows when I was 16 years old, and during the course of all these shows, I have developed movements that come naturally and whatever. But you cannot underestimate the performative aspect of a live show, in that sense that we do it 30 times in a row on a tour.
Yeah.
You know, it almost becomes like a theater piece. You can, I should, like most artists or musicians will say, oh yes, I'll just let go and I go into the thing and I lose myself in the thing. But reality, it's not the case. I mean, sometimes I feel it and I'm in there and I hardly realize it, and sometimes I'm doing what I have to, because I have to play a show. Sometimes I feel like shit. I don't feel like performing, but I'm there and people bought their tickets and I have to deliver what I need to, It's not like it's not like we have the thankful urge to want to go on stage every day also.
Right.
So
right.
so sometimes it is, you just give it your best, you try to lose yourself and get to the point where you feel what you're doing, but sometimes it just doesn't happen, and then you just try, and then you're also a little bit acting, if you want to call it,
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
not cool. I wish I wouldn't, but it is just the reality of it,
Yeah.
but you try to be, you have to try to get there. You have to try to get to the point that you lose yourself on stage, and you could, stars align and everything feels right, and sometimes it happens, but most of the time it doesn't, and it's just you trying. But anyway, so the acting, I've been playing shows and screaming in bands for more of half of my existence. So in a way, I approached the acting, I had a very physical and aggressive role to play. So I just saw it as a concert. What I do before a concert, I click in a berserk mode, and I just go for it. And that's what I did for the movie. And the movie is easy. It's easy. I think it's easier to play someone else because you're there with a goal.
Yeah.
I have to look like a father that abuses his fucking son, and it needs to look real, and then go. But on stage, I have to be myself at my worst or whatever.
Yeah. And for
So
example,
it's kind of,
I'm just guessing here. You bear with me for a second, for a moment. With the acting experience, the director says action, and you go for it, right? But in the case of Amenra and the discipline of your art, I realized, for example, and I want to go back to the time I discovered you and the rest of the band with the song Mon Ami. And I saw you, the cadence, the back and forthness of it, and it's almost like you entered in a trance-like state of mind. And the music of Amenra kind of gives you that sort of entrance, because you don't go with the punch directly from 0 to 100. And my question to that is, do you have to also make that build up with your songs to get there? Is that part intentional? Because it's always there.
it helps, eh? Yeah. It's the repetition, and it's the choice of the long repetition that we allow ourselves to have, that kind of gets you into a sort of automatic pilot, and you start doing things that you don't really realize that you're doing. Like
Yeah.
I like the fact when we're playing on a big festival, and there are a lot of people there who don't like metal music, and that are checking us out, that after a while they're standing there and going like this as well.
Yeah.
And that I love that idea. You kind of, it's like we would always compare it to a wave. You have a wave, and we force the wave over you, and you have no choice of following the movement, or whether you like it or you don't. You're there, and you're like, and that's the repetition. And in my case, personally, it helps me to have very simple evolutions in music, where not one instrument or one element jumps out and catches your attention. It's like a flow, and nothing spectacular happens, and it just moves, and then suddenly it becomes more intense, and suddenly you're in there without realizing it. That's what I like about our music.
And I think that is what is special about it, because as I mentioned before, there's a sort of ritual when it comes to listen any of your records or any of your songs. And yeah, I think that aspect is intrinsic in a way for Amenra. And also, and I could be wrong in assessing this, but it's very imprinted in you as an artist, because when it comes to Kalvarie, that repetition is there.
Yeah.
And it becomes a mantra, like
Mm-hmm.
repetition. You can you can say it twice or a third time, and it's just repetition. But over time, with that modulation, constant modulation, it becomes a ritual. It becomes like a mantra. And I don't know if yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I don't have a following question on that. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true. I mean, and what I also kind of like is that it forces the listener to invest.
Yeah.
People who are not willing to invest, they don't get to the point where it becomes valuable. They stop that's those stones, boring. Next, and then I'm like, it's not made for you, And we have that in a lot of bands. We have that in Amenra, we have that in at Kalvarie, we have that with Absent and Body too. We push the intro so long that the people who, I'm not gonna say people who don't deserve it, they fall off the boat and they give up. But that's the cool thing, not giving up, going through the pain. You have to go through the irritation, go through the pain, go through the thing to get to the salvation of the outcome of the thing. I kind of like that. It's like life. You have to have patience to get somewhere. You have to bite through the big pile of shit if you want to sometimes get to the point where it becomes interesting,
I will say you have to earn that as a listener, and that is also what is very rewarding. And what I think many of us comes to discover or comes to is the reward of listening to Amenra or any of their projects. I know that Skunk revolves around mental health, abusive behavior, violence, and in that sense, Kalvarie is about the apparent madness of human behavior. And in one of your recent interviews with The Veil of Sound, you mentioned very loosely about working in a psychiatric ward. I don't know if that was intentionally said or not, but I took notice of that because in my student years I worked creating an architectural building for asylum or psychiatric ward, and I have to do some research, going to places where people is, hospitalized with this schizophrenia, all this kind of mental, issues, and it's hard to put on words how once they become institutionalized. I don't know if I say it properly. Institutionalized. They just go to. They are somehow abandoned there, and I don't know if most of the times they can't heal from that. And I don't know if for you working in a psychiatric ward in some ways informed you as an artist or your sensibilities.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it opened my mind to it opened my view on the vulnerability of a human being as well, because what I saw when I worked in psychiatrics, I worked in in houses that were, I had 8 inhabitants that were together in a house that came from out of psychiatric, and it was rehabilitation, to get them back in society and support them while doing so, or help them out. So what I saw is that you had every sort of human being together in one house. You had a working class person together with a educated doctor or a physician that worked years and years in his career, and then after suddenly something went wrong and something glitched in his head. You have different nationalities, you have different ages, you have different social classes. Every like all those humans there were like they were at the same. Suddenly they were the same. They had the same position in society. They were all the outcasts. They were all lost. They all had to find it. So, and for me, that was kind of interesting, and that in a way I did social work back then, and in a way I still kind of do it with my music. It's music that is it's intended to heal, or to give energy or strength to people, or hope, or so in a way I feel that all of that is connected.
I have 2 questions in this topic about suffering and pain that comes from mental health issues. And I just want to ask you that. One is, do you think that is madness a breakdown of consciousness or a different state of awareness?
Well, a different state of awareness, but another conventional one, and one that makes it hard for you to function in society, which makes you a pariah or an outcast. If you can't function in society, you're fucked, and consciousness, you're not necessarily. It's a bit of both. I mean, it's not a case of is it that or that. I think it's a bit of everything. I think it's such. You have different mental disorders or so wide scaled. It's very hard to pinpoint it. You have a different sense of conscience, in that sense that you're not always conscious about what's happening around you. You can be so lost in your psychosis that you lose touch with the things around you. But it is a different sense of awareness, When I worked around the case of Masu, I mean, he did no one harm. He functioned on himself, and that's his God-given right to do what the fuck he wants on his piece of land, If it made sense to him, that it's good. If it made his world worthwhile and his life worthwhile, cool. But he had the luxury of being able to function loose of other people. If you have that thing in Mexico City, for example, it's going to be harder. You're going to be in trouble. It depends. It's a hard topic. I mean, who am I to state truths about that?
We are not saying truths. We are just having a conversation here, and I do agree with that. And that was also my following question. Do you think that mental institutions have like are meant to heal people, or just have the outcasts treated in a way?
I think the intention is there to help people heal, but in a way it has to happen within themselves. They have to heal within themselves. I mean, but the thing is, if you don't, every patient should almost have one guardian, personal guardian, for example, that is one-on-one, constantly helping you out until you find your way, But the thing is, in those mental institutions, the resources are so slim that it's very hard to do it decently. If you don't have the network of people that can help you out, it remains a very hard thing to do. It has to be possible physically as well, for a person to see the light again, or be back on track again. So it depends. It's a very depressing world to work in.
To be honest, there was a point in my life in which I have very heavy mental disorders, but I don't. I mean, I tried, prescriptions and therapists and psychiatric persons, but I went in another direction, the spiritual side of it, the nature, and it proved to me to be more effective. And I think
Yeah, it's nice.
I think that the outcome was way better than the other possibilities offered for me. So yeah, I just want to put
I
that on
think
the table.
it's just a case of so everyone needs to find what works for him or her, you know.
Yeah.
And for one, it can be medication. For another, it can be therapy. For another, it can be sport. For another, it can be nature. It's just a matter of
Art.
assisting someone to find his or her connection to healing or to a possible solution or whatever. And yeah, but it's hard. I mean, it's never easy.
Never easy. Okay, time is running out, so time for me to give you my last questions. One is about the legacy of your work. How do you find it flattering or bothering the fact that Amenra's sound has been mirrored and influenced countless other bands over time?
Yeah, it's very flattering. I can only hope as much, But I mean, when you play in a band, you never really realize that. You always think you're just doing random stuff. We don't really know what we're doing. We've grown used to it, and it's what we do. But so it's really nice to hear things like that or compliments of that sort, because it kind of proves what we hope in silence, like, yeah, I hope it was worth doing all the effort, I just hope it touches people and it can mean something to someone, because I had that as well with other bands and other music, that it meant something for me at a certain point in my life. And you can only hope as much if you're a musician yourself,
Do you still receive that from other musicians or artists at this point of your life?
Yeah, I don't necessarily need it that much now, but I think you might be more susceptible for it when you're younger. Your mind is maybe more open and it takes it in more freely, and where you're older, you may be more critical and you have to, I don't know, sort it in other ways maybe. But music has always been a refuge, for us as well. So we hope we can be a refuge for someone else, or our music can be a refuge for someone else.
I have to talk about Belgian music because I have a soft spot for your artist.
Belgium, right?
Belgium, yeah. For example, one of my favorite collaborations of you is with this band, the Black Heart Rebellion, many years ago. And there's something special about the way you create post music. And I think nowadays it has become like a movement. Of course, there's the Church of Ra, and you have many people involved there. But there are countless bands, and I think every now and again, a new band comes that is very interesting in its own way, very refreshing. So my question to that: what elements of your cultural heritage or your I don't know, your present, your society thinks that is good for good music there?
I don't really know. I question it myself, like why would Belgium do well music wise? And I think we are a very small country, we're an extremely small country in Europe, and it's always very hard to get noticed when you're very small. So in a way, we tend to work very hard to get noticed. So, and we're not afraid of working out, because because it doesn't necessarily come for free. I mean, Belgium didn't have a good connotation in that sense, that it's not like when you hear that if a band is from Belgium, you would certainly check it out. You know, it wasn't the case. So you had to get noticed. I mean, if you're from the States or from the UK or something, it's like way normal that a good band comes from those countries.
Yeah.
Whereas it's way harder to get noticed if you're from France or you're from Belgium or whatever. So I assume that because it's such a small country, and like Flemish people are known to work hard, you know. So we weren't afraid to work hard, and we weren't afraid to go the extra mile compared to other bands sometimes. And since it's such a small country, we all meet each other very quickly. If you play a certain style of music or atmospheric, if there's an atmospheric connection, so you meet each other very quickly, and in a way, you help each other out quickly as well. There's a sense of unity as well here in a way. I don't know why, because it's so small. Maybe we quickly think in terms of us against them, so we work together.
Okay.
Instead of if you live in a very, very big country, you might be against each other. You know, you might be in each other's way to get noticed. So I don't know. And we also have a very rich cultural background. There's a lot of arts. There's the Flemish primitives. There's a lot of paintings from medieval times. There's a lot of darkness in our history, the Black Plague, and there's a lot of castles here, and so it kind of feeds a certain atmosphere. It's very dense and oppressive, and you kind of see that in our fashion designers as well. There's a lot of black, dark aesthetics and light and poetry, and so that probably feeds us as well very much to dwell in those waters.
So you have reflected on this very much, and you have been involved in the scene for over 30 years, perhaps around that. Was it this always the case, or at which point could you say, okay, now things now change? Is now different for us?
I think Belgium in heavy music or whatever, Belgium earned some more stripes, got some more. I mean, there's a certain amount of bands, and they get the attention, and there's a lot of people who think in ways like, oh, there's interesting things happening in Belgium, you know. So it makes it maybe worth something to check out. That's a thankful change. Whereas in the beginning, when we started, being from Belgium didn't do anything. But you also saw it in the hardcore scene where I was from, where I was in when I was 16 years old. I mean, Belgium suddenly had a huge scene compared to other regions in Europe. There was a lot of things, but in Belgium it kind of exploded. There was a lot of action going on here. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe we tend to exaggerate the Belgians, you know. I don't know.
I do agree with all of these things that you're saying, and as a music enthusiast all the way over here in Mexico, I can only hope for something like that happen in Mexico. And actually, I spoke with a Belgian band fairly recent. I don't know if you're familiar with their names. It's called Aldrich. They recently make a debut, and at the end of last year. And I asked them this exact question that you already answered, and they mentioned something similar, because the country is so small, and what the bands that are fairly known by now are so good, they have to push themselves to be at least somewhat decent, you know? And every time that I see a new band is from Belgium, instantly I go like, okay, I need to check this out because
Who knows?
more
That's kind of
often
cool.
more often than not, is really really good, the music
Yeah.
from your country. And actually, before we have our first conversation, a day earlier I spoke with Stefan from Psychonaut and Hypotracture.
Yeah. hmm
And well, I asked him for advice to speak with you because I was a bit intimidated, but he said, you know, he's such a sweetheart. Just be yourself. And
Yeah, voilà. They're really nice too, eh? Also, what they are doing with Psychonaut as well. I remember when I first heard them, it was in a record shop here in Ghent, and it was on, and I asked like, "What is that we're listening to?" And he was like, "Yeah, Psychonaut," and he was like, "They're from Belgium." I'm like, "What?" I didn't really, you know, I. I could hardly believe that it came from Belgium because I thought it was so good and it was just the beginning band. So I was like, oh, this is definitely worth checking out or whatever. It makes me proud a bit too to be Belgian.
yeah,
If another band does well that I have nothing to do with, makes me kind of proud because it's such a small country. I think
there's a sense of community, and again this
you feel connected in a way.
tribalness, but
Yeah,
very
and
tribal.
that's the small thing. The small country does that. I think if you're in a big country, you're used to being so spread out that what someone is doing in the north of Mexico doesn't necessarily connect what is someone doing in the south of, because the distance is so big. But yeah, there's a sense of connection that is, and if someone asks like, hey, do you want to help out? Like, of course I'll help out. You're not gonna, because you can't. Maybe it's also because you just can't hide from each other. If if someone would ask me something, I say no, fuck you. You know, why would I? Fuck you. I run into that person every week. So I mean, you don't want to be the asshole, right?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, the 90s had Neurosis, Isis. The world still has Cult of Luna, The Ocean, Amenra, but I think bands like Psychonaut in this decade are showing the future, like the fresh blood.
Yeah, but we need that, eh? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
waiting for the revolution in heavy music for a new wave to come, the new generation, you know, like showing us what's up and blowing through all the old bands, you know, like wiping everyone from the table, you know. And they should, you know.
So you're welcoming something new that you think,
Yeah.
okay, this is very new.
Yeah. Definitely, you know. I want to be blown away, you know. I want to be moved because I mean, we've been in the heavy music scene for so long that it's getting very hard to be blown away, you know. It's always like, okay, yeah, cool, what they're doing, but doesn't really do anything for me. And you know, I would love to be shown wrong again, you know.
I sent you the name of this Belgian band.
Aldrich, yeah.
Are you familiar with the name?
I've seen it before, but I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
I don't know if you have been recently surprised by a new artist or a new band, but I think there's something special with these guys, and I will suggest you to listen to. I want to mention your project Eyes of Another.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's perhaps one of my favorites from your contributions. Is this song a one-off thing? No more in the future?
We had different songs. I think we have 4 songs or something. There was one that was suddenly I felt the urgency to finish one because it was like in the COVID period, you know, and I felt like, okay, this is the time. And Cellini our friend that who's a producer and a DJ, has a very busy schedule too, and we have busy schedules too. So in a way, we have something like in due time we'll do more, but I mean, we don't have a sense of needing to finish everything or make full albums, or it's just nice to know that we have this potential thing there that could probably become very interesting, but it doesn't necessarily need to be explored right away, you know. We see each other, we get along well, and if agendas, maybe we'll write an album when we're 60 years old, you know. But it was really nice to do. And it was a mixture again of different people. It was me, Leonard, and Cellini, and Tim also Tim, our bass player in Amenra. We recorded a part of it in his studio. I think we did. Did we do vocals? I think we did vocals in the studio, or we mixed in the studio. I don't really remember. Anyway, but he also had his opinion and tweaked some sounds. So yeah, it became a product again of different people. But it made sense, you know. It's just nice to explore the same atmosphere with different elements, you know.
But there is this clear notion ahead of making music with this kind of project, right? It has to be digitalized atmospherics, electronic beats, down tempo,
Yeah,
this sort of thing.
yeah.
Well,
But it has to make sense, you know. It has to have
yeah.
content. It needs to do something. If it doesn't do something, it's not worth it.
There's plenty of it now out there. And,
yeah, voila.
I mean, I don't know how much of a response you guys received for this song release, but with my circle of friends, it was huge. I mean, it made a big impact to
It's cool.
see.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it was really nice to do. You know, and we felt the potential. We have some more songs that are not so calm. That one was pretty calm. It was very down paced. It was very zen. And then we had some other songs that were kind of a little more in your face.
Punchier.
Excuse me.
Punchier.
Punchier, yeah, like more. That were like it was like black metal fucking electronics. It was weird. It was, but it made sense, you know.
I love it.
Yeah. Someday they'll be done, you know.
Okay, so I have 3 more questions for you. These are weird somehow.
No problem.
One, there is a quote from a Spanish bohemian musician, Joaquin Sabina, and I will butcher this quote, but it goes something like this. Good music needs to have good melody, good music, and something else that no one knows what it is, but in the end is the only things that matter. What would that be for you?
Yeah. I agree totally. I mean, it's the idea of being used as a channel. You know, as a musician, you're used as a channel. When the stars align, you automatically feel when it's in there. And most of the time, if it's in there, your song will stand the test of time. You know, it will be remembered, not necessarily by the world, but I mean by some. It will touch people, or it will do something. And when you are making a song, or when you're recording the song, you automatically feel like, okay, this is gonna do it. You know, every album, you can pick out the songs that go like, okay, this either it like raises the hairs on your arms, or it brings a tear to your eye, or it you know, it makes you feel intensely whatever it is that you want to feel or need to feel. It's more like what you need to feel. But what it is, that's the magic sauce that you want to have in there, but you can never control. I think that's the sense of being patient or lucky that it's in there. if you have it quickly, then you're lucky. But if you're patient and you wait it out, it can come back and it can sneak into your songs, you know. That's why I don't believe in bands that or I don't believe is a big word, but I mean, you will have it less with bands that release an album every year, you know. That's like trying to force it out you. It becomes mathematics. It becomes a structurally constructed thing, which will make music, but not necessarily the thing might not be in there, you know. And that's what I love, what I seek, but not necessarily find always, you know.
And how often do you squeeze that song or composition until you decide, okay, there's no magic here, let's throw it the other way?
Yeah, most of the time. We always say I feel it or I don't feel it. When someone, and that's what's super frustrating. When you play with us, we're not school musicians, so we can hardly explain what we mean. There's no chord progression that we can, or a melody and notes that will do the trick. You play a thing and either you feel it, it's there, or it's not, you know. And then when it's in there, structure, song structure, production, it all doesn't matter anymore. Fuck it. It can sound like shit, but it's in there and people will recognize it. And that's where the magic is. That is the potion of the gods, you know.
Yeah. And it exists in the abstract. It's untangible.
It exists in the abstract, yeah, definitely. I mean, and what it means for one person will not necessarily do the trick for the other person. But that's why we try to have at least 3 of us that feel it. And if 3 of us feel it, then there's a bigger chance that other people will feel it too, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
But it makes sense.
Second to last question, and okay, if you could choose other 2 bands to play a one-off show, having Amenra in the middle, I was hesitating to say your solo music.
Amenra, yeah.
Having Amenra in the middle and connecting the dots for the first and the third band, which band will it be? Which bands? And I don't know if you want to focus this on Belgian bands or worldwide bands.
Yeah, it's so hard not to crack, eh? I would need a little festival, I think, just to fill it up. A small festival, a one-day festival.
Okay.
But no, I mean, yeah. For me personally, and I speak for myself, I don't necessarily speak for another musician in Amenra, but I mean, for me personally, two should be playing, you know, because that really formed me as a musician or as an artist, very much so. It gave me direction. And for me, Portishead can play too, but Gibbons would be more than welcome to walk around in the backstage. Maybe maybe Nick Cave can play too. You know.
Interesting.
Who else? Yeah, those would be good.
Okay.
To start with.
Before my last question, I just want to point out that it seems to be a resurgence of Nick Cave influence with vocals. And for example, Aldrich, it's very much influenced by Nick Cave. So again, if you could give it a listen, please. My last question.
Yeah, I will.
My last question is tough for me in this case because Kalvarie has a very distinctive influence with this documentary and this person. So, okay, this conversation is about this work. Let's focus on that song, this EP. if you could
Mhm.
assimilate or relate what you have in your mind about this work, other than the documentary, a movie, a painting, a book, which one will it be and why?
Fuck. It's hard to describe. Goh. It's always hard to compare it to another
Body of work.
what's it called? Yeah, because I mean
It's very
it's
personal.
it stands on its own. I mean, I can't really compare it to anything. I could give you separate things that inspire me as an artist in general, but I can't really say it about an album or an EP, you know. Masu, I have never been so creatively supported by another concept, this time being Jean-Marie Massou as an artist and his creations. It's the first time that it's almost a concept album, you know. So to compare it with something else, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know what to compare it with.
Usually what I mean with this question is because sometimes you have something very specific in your mind, something the visuals of it, that it may take you to, oh, I remember this scene of this movie or this topic, you know. But yeah, it's different for every artist.
Yeah, I don't really have that. I couldn't say what like I said, I think I said it last time. What inspired me greatly was one Masu and three our rehearsal space that we are building. The
Oh,
world that I was living in at that time, and that was a concrete building full of wooden planks and the stones that were laying around to make music with, and suddenly all the pieces got together. I'd rather want my album to be inspired by my own world than someone else's work. You know, the more I already did an exception now, basing myself on another artist. It had never occurred before, so this is as wide as I go, as letting me be inspired by one artist for an album, you know.
as you briefly said, you intentionally try to make your work very personal. It's like
Yeah, I tried
dealing with your own.
most of the time I try to steer clear of all influence. Like I don't listen to heavy music, or I don't listen to music that is similar to mine, just because I want to steer clear of not stealing, but getting directly inspired by peers almost. I'd rather be inspired by a fucking ice skater or whatever, a figure skater, than a musician that is in my world, you know. It's
Interesting.
it's not too easy, but it's too obvious. I think the interesting parts lie in the conventional connection of worlds. I think that's what makes it interesting.
Okay, Colin. Well, thank you for your time. It was a good
Thank
conversation. And
you.
yeah, it's my time to let you go. I hope that I have another opportunity in the future to discover your music, your work, and see what's different. Okay.
Yeah, I hope we can make it to Mexico soon at some point. That would
You
be
pl
great.
you played last year in South America, right? I don't know if you also played in Mexico.
Yeah, we didn't have Mexico. No, it would need to be connected to an American tour, I guess, at some point. It'll
Okay.
happen at some point. Thank you for your time, eh?
Thank you,
Really appreciate it.
and have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Enjoy your day. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.